You? Fly my helicopter? I'd sooner let my dog try. Those words came out of Whitney Foster's mouth. CEO, standing in front of 200 employees, laughing like she'd just told the funniest joke in the world. Austin Matthews stood there, janitor uniform, coffee in hand. But here's the thing. Whitney had no idea who she was talking to. No idea what he'd done before he started mopping her floors at 2 in the morning. Some people have secrets. Some people have entire lives they never talk about. Austin was about to remind everyone why you should never judge someone by their uniform. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens in the next 30 seconds will absolutely blow your mind. I promise you've never seen anything like this. Let me take you back 2 days, to where this story really begins. 2 a.m., executive floor, Apex Digital Systems. Most people never see this building at this hour, when the offices are empty, when the lights are dim, when the only sound is a floor buffer humming across marble tile. That's when Austin Matthews did his best work. He moved the machine in perfect lines, overlapping passes, making sure every inch was covered, the kind of attention to detail most people would never notice. But Austin noticed everything. He'd been doing this job for 3 years. Night shift, maintenance crew of 1, cleaning offices for people who'd never remember his name. And that was fine. That's exactly why he took the job. Down in the basement, next to the boiler room, Austin had a locker. Nothing special, standard metal. A combination lock that stuck sometimes. Inside, his work uniform, a lunchbox, a thermos, and 1 photograph, facing the back wall where nobody could see it. He never looked at that photo anymore. Didn't need to. He remembered every detail. The elevator chimed. Austin didn't look up. He knew those footsteps, that particular rhythm of expensive heels on marble. Whitney Foster. She walked out like she owned the place, which technically she did. 38 years old. Blonde hair pulled back so tight it probably gave her headaches. Designer suit that cost more than Austin made in 2 months. She walked right past him, didn't even glance down, just stepped over his mop bucket like it was part of the furniture. Whitney's father built this company from nothing, turned it into a tech empire worth billions. Then he died 3 years ago, and Whitney inherited everything. The money, the power, the corner office with windows that looked out over the entire city. But here's what she didn't inherit. The work ethic, the respect for people, the understanding that titles don't make you better than anyone else. Austin kept working, steady, methodical. Whitney went to the executive kitchen, made herself coffee, left the coffee grounds spilled on the counter, left the spoon in the sink, left her empty sugar packet on the floor. She'd do this every few weeks. Come in early, make a mess, and Austin would clean it up, just like always. Invisible doesn't mean unobservant. She pulled out her phone, started talking, loud like she was the only person in the building. I don't care what it takes. Make it mandatory, everyone attends, I want full participation. Pause. Yes, everyone. Executives, engineers, IT, support staff. Another pause. Even the maintenance people. It'll be good for, I don't know, morale or whatever. She laughed, that sharp, performative laugh that echoed off the empty walls. We're doing it at the airfield, Friday afternoon. Tell everyone to clear their schedules. The airfield. Austin's hand slowed on the buffer, just for a second, just long enough that someone paying attention might have noticed. But Whitney Foster had never paid attention to the janitor, not once in 3 years. She finished her coffee, left the cup on someone's desk, walked back to the elevator without a single glance in his direction. The doors closed. Silence again. Austin stood there in the empty hallway, the buffer still humming, his reflection in the polished floor, the airfield. Of all the places in the world, she had to pick the airfield. He finished his shift. Every floor, every bathroom, every office. All by 6 a.m., just like always. Clocked out, took the bus home, 40-minute ride through a city that was just starting to wake up. His apartment was small, studio, 1 room, bed in the corner, kitchenette that barely fit a microwave, but it was quiet. And after everything, quiet was what he needed most. Austin sat on the edge of his bed, didn't turn on the lights, just sat there as the sun started coming up through the window. The airfield. He hadn't been around helicopters in 21 years, hadn't wanted to be. The sound alone could send him right back. The smell of fuel, the feeling of rotor wash, all of it. Some nights he still dreamed about it, the good missions and the bad ones, The ones where everyone came home and the ones where they didn't. The PTSD didn't care that the war ended over a decade ago, didn't care that he was safe now, didn't care about anything except making sure he remembered. That's why he worked nights, why he worked alone, why he'd turned down every company event for 3 years straight. Crowds made his hands shake, loud noises made him sweat, too many people asking too many questions made him want to disappear completely. But the airfield. Austin pulled out his phone, looked at the company email, the mandatory all-staff retreat, Friday, noon to 4 p.m. He could skip it, call in sick. Nobody would miss him. Nobody ever missed the janitor. But something made him stop. Something made him read that email one more time. Maybe it was the way Whitney had stepped over his bucket without looking. Maybe it was 3 years of being invisible. Maybe it was just time. Some invitations aren't really invitations. Some are tests. Austin made a decision. Friday. He'd go. He had no idea what would happen, no idea that everything was about to change. But somewhere deep down, in a place he'd kept locked away for 21 years, something was waking up. And it remembered how to fly. Friday came with perfect weather. Clear blue sky, light breeze, the kind of day people post on social media with captions about being blessed. 3 charter buses pulled up to Hillcrest Private Airfield just after noon. Doors opened. 200 employees climbed out, stretching, squinting in the sunlight, looking around at the small hangar and wondering why they were here instead of working. Austin took public transport, got there 20 minutes late, kept to the back of the crowd. He could feel it already, that tightness in his chest, the way his pulse picked up when there were too many people in one place. But he breathed through it. Slow, controlled, just like they taught him. The crowd spread out across the tarmac. Engineers clustered together. Executives checked their phones. Support staff looked confused. And there, center stage, was Whitney Foster. She had a microphone clipped to her collar, standing next to a Bell 429 helicopter that probably cost more than everyone here would make in their entire careers combined. "Welcome, everyone!" Her voice carried across the field through portable speakers. "I know you're wondering why we're here instead of in the office." Polite chuckles from the crowd. "Today is about pushing boundaries, trying new things, stepping outside your comfort zones." She gestured to the helicopter behind her like a game show host revealing a prize. "This beautiful machine represents success, achievement, the rewards of hard work and dedication." Austin stood near the equipment shed, coffee in hand, watching. "So here's what we're going to do." Whitney's smile grew wider. "I want to give some of you the chance to experience what success feels like. Who wants to try flying this helicopter?" Dead silence. Nobody moved. Nobody volunteered, because everyone knew this wasn't really an opportunity. It was a test, and volunteering meant becoming the afternoon's entertainment. Whitney's smile flickered. "Come on. Nobody? Not one brave soul willing to try?" More silence. Her eyes scanned the crowd, hunting, looking for someone to pick. That's when she saw him, Austin, standing at the edge, maintenance uniform, coffee cup, everything about him screaming outsider. Her smile came back, different now, sharper. Well, our janitor actually showed up." 200 heads turned. Austin felt every pair of eyes land on him. "What's your name again?" Whitney asked, even though she knew, even though he'd worked there for 3 years. "Austin, ma'am." "Austin!" She said it like she'd just discovered something delightful. "Tell me, Austin, do you ever dream about doing something more exciting than mopping floors?" Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. The CFO whispered something to a board member. This wasn't right. Everyone could feel it, but Whitney was just getting started. "I'm serious. You're always so quiet, so invisible. Maybe today's your chance to be seen for once." Austin stayed calm, kept his voice level. "I appreciate the thought, ma'am, but I'm fine where I am." "Oh, I bet you are." Whitney walked closer, the microphone picking up every word. "Safe, comfortable, no risks, no challenges." She stopped about 10 feet away, looked him up and down. "Tell you what, Austin, I'll make you an offer. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." She pointed at the helicopter. "Fly that thing. Just one circle around the field. And if you can do it, if you can actually fly my helicopter, I'll marry you myself." The crowd gasped, then laughed. Real laughter this time. Because it was absurd. Because it was impossible. Because everyone knew janitors didn't fly helicopters, some people pulled out phones, started recording. This was going to be good content. Austin looked at the bell, 429, at the crowd, at Whitney standing there with that smile that said she'd already won. Then he looked at his coffee cup. For 3 years, he'd stayed invisible, stayed quiet, stayed safe. For 3 years, he'd let people assume things about him, let them see only what they expected to see. For 3 years, he'd kept his past locked away where it couldn't hurt him. But something in Whitney's voice, something in the way she looked at him like he was nothing, something broke. Austin set his coffee cup down on a nearby equipment case. The ceramic clinked against metal. That small sound somehow cut through all the laughter. "Ma'am." His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "I need to know something." Whitney's smile wavered slightly. "What? Is this a genuine offer or is this just for show?" The laughter died down. People started paying attention. Whitney recovered quickly. "Oh, it's genuine. Please, by all means, show us what you've got." Austin looked at the helicopter one more time. Then he started walking toward it. The crowd went completely silent. Because something about the way he moved, the way he carried himself, it didn't look like someone who was scared. It looked like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. And that changed everything. Whitney's smile froze on her face. She'd expected him to back down, expected nervous laughter, expected him to admit it was all a joke and slink back into the crowd. Instead, Austin Matthews was walking toward her $2 million helicopter. "Someone get a waiver," Whitney called out, "and maybe call an ambulance, just in case." Laughter from the crowd, but nervous now. The CFO touched her arm. "Whitney, maybe this isn't—" "It's fine," she waved him off. "Let him have his moment. It'll be over in 30 seconds. But Austin wasn't stopping. He reached the helicopter and started walking around it. Slowly. Methodically. "Look at this." Whitney spoke into the microphone. "He's inspecting it, like he knows what he's looking for." More laughter, but quieter. Because Austin wasn't just looking, he was checking specific points. His hand ran along the tail boom, checked the tail rotor gearbox, examined the main rotor hub. An engineer whispered to his colleague, "Is he actually doing a pre-flight inspection?" Austin crouched down, checked the landing skids, looked underneath, stood up and examined the engine intakes. He moved like someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Whitney's voice had an edge now. "Any day now, Austin." Austin straightened up, turned back to look at her. "Ma'am, quick question. Is this the Bell 429 or a modified configuration?" The crowd went quiet. Whitney blinked. "What? The model? Standard 429 or custom?" Whitney's assistant leaned in, whispered urgently, It's a 429. Whitney's voice was sharp. "Why does that matter?" "Dual engine configuration. Different power management than single-engine birds." An engineer pulled out his phone, started typing. His eyes widened. "He's right. The 429 is twin-engine." "Lucky guess," Whitney snapped. But she wasn't smiling anymore. "Anyone can Google that." The hired pilot pushed through the crowd, stared at Austin. "Sir, where did you learn about helicopter classifications?" Austin didn't answer, just looked at him. Something passed between them. "I need the weight and balance sheet, current fuel load, the maintenance log." The pilot's jaw dropped. "Those are exactly the right questions." "He's stalling," Whitney announced, "trying to sound smart before he admits he can't do it." But the pilot was already handing over the logbook. Austin flipped it open, scanned the pages. "Last inspection 3 days ago. Fuel at 60%, weights within limits." He looked at the pilot. "She's airworthy." "Yes, sir, she is." The crowd was focused now. Phones out, recording. This wasn't funny anymore. Austin started a detailed walk-around, and everyone could see he knew what he was doing. Engine cowlings, main rotor blades, tail rotor, fuel caps, pitot tube, every checkpoint, in sequence, by the book. The pilot followed him, eyes widening. "That's military pre-flight," the pilot said quietly to the CFO. "Navy procedure." The CFO turned to Whitney, face pale. "Where did you find this guy?" "He's a janitor." Whitney's voice was rising. "He cleans toilets." "Ma'am," the pilot interrupted. "Janitors don't know what a collective pitch control is. They don't check blade tracking. They don't inspect the Jesus nut." "The what?" "The main rotor retention nut. Called a Jesus nut because if it fails, you meet Jesus. The pilot shook his head. He just checked it, without being told. That's training. Whitney's hands were shaking. Fine, get in and fly it, or admit you can't. Austin completed his walk around, came back to the pilot. She looks good. Clean maintenance record. Good to go. Agreed, sir. Stop calling him sir. Whitney's voice was shrill. He's a janitor. The pilot looked at her, pity in his expression. Ma'am, I don't know what he is, but he's not someone who doesn't know helicopters. Austin opened the pilot's door, looked inside at the controls. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Memory, recognition, pain. Then it was gone. He climbed in. The crowd surged forward. Everyone wanted to see. Through the cockpit window, they watched Austin settle into the seat, adjust it, reach for the harness. His hands moved without hesitation. He's putting on the headset, someone said. He's checking the instruments, another voice. That's a systematic scan, that's not random. Austin's hands moved across the overhead panel, flipping switches in sequence. The pilot grabbed the CFO's arm. He's running a startup sequence, the exact sequence. How does he know the order? Maybe he watched a video? No, the pilot's voice was certain. You don't learn this from videos, this is muscle memory. Whitney's microphone picked up her panicked voice. Stop him! Stop this right now! Stop him from what? The CFO turned to her. You challenged him to fly, but he's a janitor! Then what are you worried about? Whitney had no answer. Inside the cockpit, Austin's hand moved to the starter. The first turbine began to whine. Low at first, building. The crowd went dead silent. The rotors began to turn. Slow, then faster. That rhythmic whop, whop, whop cutting through the afternoon air. Whitney stood frozen, face white. The CFO leaned to the pilot. What if he actually knows what he's doing? The pilot didn't take his eyes off the helicopter. Then your CEO just humiliated someone she should never have messed with. The turbine whine increased. The rotors accelerated. Austin Matthews, janitor at Apex Digital Systems, was about to fly, and everyone was watching. The instrument panel lit up. Green lights across the board, engine temperatures rising, oil pressure good, hydraulics online. Austin's hands moved with absolute certainty. Right hand on the cyclic, left hand on the collective, feet on the pedals. The position of someone who'd sat in this seat before, many times before. Whitney's voice came out as a whisper. This isn't possible. But the CFO heard her. Apparently it is. The rotor RPM climbed, 50%, 60, 70. The helicopter started to shake, normal vibration, getting ready. Austin checked the gauges one more time. Everything green, everything perfect. His left hand squeezed the collective trigger, released the rotor brake. The blades accelerated freely now. 80%, 90, 100%. The sound was deafening, that distinctive roar of a helicopter at full power. People in the crowd covered their ears, but nobody looked away, because this was the moment. Austin pulled up slightly on the collective, adding pitch to the blades, creating lift. The helicopter shuddered. Then it rose, smooth, controlled, absolutely stable. 1 foot off the ground, 2 feet, 3. The crowd gasped, because Austin Matthews wasn't just starting a helicopter, he was flying it, like he'd been born to do it. The skids left the tarmac completely. The helicopter hung there, perfect hover, zero drift, zero oscillation, textbook. The pilot's voice was barely audible. That's perfect. Whitney's microphone had gone dead. She just stood there, mouth open, watching her world turn upside down, because the janitor was flying, and he was making it look easy. The sound hit everyone first. That deep, rhythmic whop, whop, whop of rotor blades cutting through air, the whine of twin turbines at full power, the rush of wind being pushed down and out. But it was the silence that followed that changed everything. The crowd went completely quiet. All the laughter, all the mockery, all the smug certainty that this was just a janitor playing pretend. Gone. Because what they were seeing was impossible. The helicopter hung there, 5 feet off the ground, perfectly stable, not drifting left or right, not rocking forward or back, not spinning on its axis, just hovering, like it was nailed to the sky. Inside the cockpit, Austin's hands made tiny adjustments, microscopic inputs on the cyclic, slight pressure changes on the collective, gentle touches on the pedals, the kind of control that takes thousands of hours to develop. The pilot grabbed the CFO's shoulder, had to lean in close to be heard over the rotor noise. That's a textbook hover, No drift, no oscillation. That's not beginner's luck, that's mastery. Whitney stood frozen. Her microphone had slipped from her collar, hanging by its cord, forgotten. "This isn't happening," she whispered. But nobody heard her. The hover lasted 5 seconds. 10. 15. Austin sat in that cockpit like he was sitting in his living room, relaxed, confident, checking instruments with practiced ease. Engine temps good, oil pressure steady, hydraulics responding perfectly, everything exactly as it should be. Then he did something that made the professional pilot's eyes go wide. Austin transitioned to forward flight. The nose dipped, just slightly, maybe 5 degrees. The helicopter pitched forward and began moving across the field. Not jerky, not uncertain, not the wobbly, overcorrected mess of someone learning, smooth as glass. "No," the pilot breathed. "No, that's not possible. That transition takes weeks to learn, months to perfect." But Austin was already doing it. The helicopter accelerated. 10 knots, 20, 30, moving across the tarmac with absolute precision. Someone in the crowd shouted, "He's actually flying it! Oh my God, he's actually flying!" An engineer had his phone out, recording. His hands were shaking. "This is insane! This is absolutely insane!" Whitney found her voice, desperate now. "Lucky start, that's all. Wait till he tries to turn. He'll lose control." But Austin was already turning. He banked left, and not a wide, cautious turn like a student would make. A tight banking turn, the kind that requires perfect coordination between all 3 flight controls. Cyclic left, collective up to maintain altitude, left pedal to counter the torque, right pedal to stop the turn. All happening in fractions of a second. He made it look effortless. The helicopter carved through the air like it was on rails. 45-degree bank, maintaining perfect altitude, perfect airspeed. The crowd erupted in noise, disbelief, excitement. Phones everywhere capturing this impossible moment. "That's not a janitor!" someone yelled. "That's a pilot!" The hired pilot was shaking his head, over and over. "I've been flying for 20 years. Commercial, private. I couldn't make that turn that smooth." Whitney's face had drained of all color. "Stop him! Someone stop him before he crashes and kills someone!" "Stop him?" The CFO turned on her, voice hard, angry. "He's flying better than your hired pilot, better than anyone I've ever seen." Austin leveled out, climbed to 200 feet. 300. The helicopter responded to every input like an extension of his body, like it was reading his mind. Then he did something that made the professional pilot actually stagger backward, a tactical descending spiral. The helicopter's nose dropped. It began to rotate, descending in a tight corkscrew that lost altitude fast while maintaining complete control. It was a combat maneuver, used to land in hot zones, under fire, when you needed to get on the ground fast and make yourself a difficult target. The pilot couldn't finish, just pointed, mouth open. "That's what?" the CFO demanded. "That's a Navy combat descent. That's a tactical maneuver. You don't learn that in civilian flight school. You learn that in a war zone." The crowd had gone silent again, watching, understanding that something much bigger than a joke was happening here. Whitney's knees looked like they might give out. "Who is he? Who the hell is he?" But nobody answered. Everyone was watching Austin. He completed the spiral, leveled at 100 feet, perfect altitude, perfect heading, and then, because some part of him remembered what it felt like to really fly, to feel alive in the sky, he performed something purely for show. A pedal turn. The helicopter began to rotate on its axis, spinning slowly, 360 degrees. The nose pointing at every part of the horizon while staying in exactly the same spot in the sky. It had zero functional purpose. It was pure demonstration, pure mastery, showmanship. The crowd lost their minds, cheering, shouting, applause building like thunder. "He's showing off!" an engineer yelled, laughing, amazed. "The janitor is showing off in a helicopter." Even the CFO was smiling now, shaking his head in disbelief. But Whitney looked like she might be sick. Austin completed the rotation, faced the landing zone, and then everyone realized what he was about to do. He was coming in for landing. Not just any landing, a pinnacle landing, the most difficult kind, where you touch down on a specific point with zero margin for error. The painted H on the tarmac. The helicopter began to descend, 300 feet, 200, 100. The crowd held their breath. Complete silence except for the rotors. Every phone was recording. Every eye was locked on that helicopter, 50 feet. Austin's hands made constant adjustments, reading the wind, feeling the helicopter's response, making corrections before they were even needed. 30 feet. The pilot grabbed the CFO's arm, squeezed hard. If he nails this landing, if he puts it center on that H, then he's not just a pilot. He's an exceptional pilot. 20 feet. Whitney couldn't watch, but she couldn't look away either. 10 feet. The helicopter descended perfectly vertical. No drift, no swing, coming down like it was on a wire. 5 feet. The crowd was completely silent now. 200 people holding their breath as one. 3 feet. Austin's eyes never left his reference points. His hands never stopped making tiny corrections. 1 foot. The skids touched concrete, center of the H0 bounce. 0 slide, 0 adjustment needed. Absolutely perfect. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The turbines began to wind down. The rotors started to slow, then someone started clapping. Slow at first, deliberate, then another person, and another. Within 5 seconds, 200 people were applauding, cheering, shouting. The sound was deafening, louder than the helicopter had been. Engineers were jumping, support staff were hugging each other, even executives were clapping, because they'd just witnessed something extraordinary. The hired pilot had tears in his eyes. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. The CFO was laughing, shaking his head. I can't believe what I just saw. But Whitney Foster stood alone. Microphone dead on the ground, face white as chalk, hands trembling, watching as Austin Matthews shut down the helicopter with the same calm professionalism he'd shown flying it. Battery off, fuel pumps off, everything by the book. He removed the headset, opened the door, stepped out to a wall of sound. The crowd rushed forward, not threatening, celebrating, surrounding the helicopter like pilgrims at a shrine. And Whitney Foster realized something terrible. She'd just humiliated someone in front of 200 witnesses, someone who was about to make her regret every single word. The noise was chaos, pure chaos. People shouting, applause thundering across the field, engineers jumping up and down, support staff hugging complete strangers like their team just won the championship. Austin shut down the helicopter with the same methodical care he used to clean floors. Every switch, every gauge, everything by the book. Even now, even in this moment. He removed the headset, placed it on the hook, opened the door, stepped out into a wall of sound. The crowd rushed forward, not threatening, celebrating, surrounding the helicopter like it was a miracle instead of a machine. People were yelling questions, reaching out, trying to shake his hand. The pilot pushed through first. Face flushed, eyes wide with something like awe. "Who are you?" His voice was shaking. "Who trained you? Where did you train?" Austin's voice stayed quiet, calm. "Pensacola, class of 2000, naval aviation." For a moment, nobody understood. Then phones came out, fingers flying across screens, frantic searching. "Wait," an engineer said, voice rising. Wait. Pensacola? That's the Navy Flight School. Austin Matthews." Another voice, younger, reading from his phone. "Oh my God, Commander Austin Matthews!" The noise didn't stop, but it changed, shifted. People were finding something, discovering something. "Navy Cross recipient," someone read out loud. "Iraq Theater, 2008. He flew rescue missions," another voice called out. "Multiple tours, under fire. Saved 18 Marines from a downed transport helicopter. 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Air Medals. He's a decorated war hero." The information spread like wildfire, person to person, phone to phone. The truth racing through the crowd faster than anyone could control it. This wasn't a janitor who could fly. This was a combat pilot who happened to clean floors. The CFO turned to Whitney. His face was stone, voice cutting. "You just humiliated a war hero. On camera, in front of 200 witnesses. Do you understand what you've done?" Whitney tried to speak. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't... How was I supposed to know?" "That's exactly the point." Austin's voice cut through the noise. Not loud, not harsh, just clear. Carrying. The crowd went silent. Instantly. 200 people stopping mid-sentence because something in his tone commanded attention without demanding it. Austin stood next to the helicopter, still in his maintenance jacket, still calm, still steady. But something had changed in his eyes. "You weren't supposed to know. That's exactly the point." Whitney stared at him, unable to move, unable to look away. You saw a janitor, Austin continued, his voice never rising, never hardening, just truth, plain and simple. I am a janitor. I clean your floors at 2 in the morning. I empty your trash. I make your building work while you sleep. He gestured to the crowd, to all of them watching. But I'm also a man who served 21 years before this, who flew missions that would give you nightmares, who learned that a uniform, any uniform, doesn't define worth. The silence was absolute now. You could hear the wind, the flags snapping on the hanger, nothing else. I clean floors at night because PTSD doesn't care about resumes, because some of us need quiet work while we heal, because the nightmares are worse in crowds, because loud noises make my hands shake, because the smell of jet fuel sometimes puts me back in a cockpit over Fallujah watching friends die. His voice never wavered, never broke, just honest, raw, real. You assumed my uniform was all I was. That's not just wrong. It's wasteful. How many other people in this company have skills you don't know about? Stories you've never asked to hear? Worth you've never bothered to see? Whitney's mouth moved. No sound came out. An employee in the crowd, a young woman from IT, was crying quietly. Others were nodding. Some looked angry. Most looked moved. Because Austin wasn't just talking about himself anymore. He was talking about all of them. Everyone who'd ever been overlooked, underestimated, judged by what they did instead of who they were. Ma'am, Austin said, voice gentle now, almost kind. I don't need your apology, but maybe you need to learn to ask questions before you make assumptions about people. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." The pilot stepped forward. His voice was shaking, emotional. Sir, Commander, we have a VP of Flight Operations position. It's been vacant for 6 months. Nobody can fill it. If you want it, it's yours, right now. I'll hand in my notice and work under you. It would be an honor. The crowd murmured. Agreement, support. Whitney found her voice, desperate, panicked. Wait, you can't just offer him. Actually, the CFO said quietly, he can. The board authorized that hire months ago, and frankly, Whitney, after what just happened, you don't get a say anymore. A board member pushed through the crowd. Older woman, gray hair, expensive suit, but her eyes were kind. Commander Matthews, the board would like to speak with you, privately. We have questions, and we have opportunities, real ones. Not charity, not pity, real positions that need someone with your skills and your character. Austin looked at the helicopter, at the crowd of faces watching him with something he hadn't seen in years. Respect, not pity, not curiosity, not the careful politeness people show veterans because they don't know what else to do. Real respect, earned, recognized. Then he looked at Whitney, still frozen, still processing that her world had just flipped upside down. I'll think about it, he said. He started walking, toward the hangar, away from the crowd. People stepped aside, making space, creating a path, like the Red Sea parting. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved to stop him, just watched him walk with that same steady dignity. Then someone started clapping, slow, deliberate, purposeful, an engineer near the back. Then someone else joined, and another. Within 5 seconds, the applause was building, growing. 10 people, 20, 50. Within 10 seconds, all 200 employees were clapping, cheering. Some were crying. Some were shouting his name. The sound built like a wave, crashed over the field, thundered against the hangar walls, louder than the helicopter had been, louder than anything. Austin didn't look back, didn't acknowledge it, just kept walking with that same steady pace he used when he pushed a mop at 2 in the morning, the same dignity, the same quiet strength. The same man he'd always been, just finally seen. Behind him, Whitney Foster stood alone next to a helicopter worth $2 million. Not attacked, not screamed at, not threatened, just irrelevant. The crowd had already moved on, already forgotten her, because they'd found something more important, someone more worth their attention. The CFO leaned close to her, voice cold, professional. The video's already going viral. It's on 6 platforms, 30,000 views and climbing, 50,000 now. The headline writes itself, CEO humiliates decorated war hero. Whitney's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the tarmac. What do I do? Her voice was small, broken, lost. You learn? The CFO walked away. If you're capable of it. The board member, the woman with kind eyes, paused next to Whitney. For what it's worth, we're not firing you. The board voted an hour ago when we saw how you were treating him. We're reassigning you. Leadership coaching, 6 months, intensive. You'll learn what it means to lead, or you'll prove you can't. Whitney looked up, tears on her face, mascara running. Why? Why not just fire me? Because your father built something good here, and maybe you can learn to be worthy of it. She started to walk away, stopped, turned back. But that man you just humiliated, he was already worthy. He just needed someone to see it. She left. The crowd was dispersing now, heading to the tent, following Austin, wanting to be near someone who'd just shown them what real strength looked like, what real dignity meant. The pilot lingered, looked at the helicopter, at the perfect landing marks on the H. 20 years I've been flying, he said to nobody in particular. Commercial, private, military contract work, and I've never seen anything like that. Never even close. He walked away, too. Whitney sat alone on the tarmac, her expensive suit getting dirty, her perfect hair falling loose, her makeup ruined by tears. The helicopter sat silent beside her, engine cooling, rotors still, a monument to her hubris. In the distance, she could hear the crowd, laughing, celebrating, the sound of people who just witnessed something they'd never forget, something they'd tell their grandchildren about. And somewhere in that crowd, a janitor named Austin Matthews was being offered the future he deserved, while Whitney Foster was left with nothing but regret and the weight of her own cruelty. You can't humiliate someone whose worth doesn't depend on your opinion. That's what he'd said, and God, how he'd proven it. 20 minutes later, VIP tent at the edge of the field. Austin sat in a folding chair, the CFO across from him, 2 board members, the pilot standing nearby, all of them respectful, careful. We had no idea, the CFO said, pouring water into a real glass, not paper cups. Your HR file just says previous military service. That's it, nothing else. Austin accepted the water. I didn't advertise it. Didn't seem relevant to mopping floors. It's relevant to leadership, the older board member said. Silver hair, kind eyes, to judgment, to character, to all the things that actually matter in running a company. Outside the tent, they could hear Whitney, her voice rising and falling, a PR handler trying to contain the damage. The video's already viral, the handler was saying, voice tight. 200 people recorded it, every platform, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. The narrative is completely locked, entitled CEO Humiliates Decorated War Hero. How do we fix it? Whitney's voice, desperate now. We don't fix it, you do, with changed behavior, not better spin, actual change. Inside the tent, the pilot set the helicopter's logbook in front of Austin. I checked your flight, reviewed every maneuver. He paused. 0 errors, perfect execution. Textbook procedures from start to shutdown. He looked at Austin directly. You're still current, aren't you? Still flying somewhere? Austin nodded. Small airfield upstate, about 90 minutes from here. Volunteer search and rescue on weekends. Mostly wilderness recoveries. Lost hikers. Hunters who didn't come back. The occasional medical transport when weather grounds the bigger birds. You never stopped flying. The pilot said it with wonder. No, I never stopped. Why not? The younger board member asked. Austin was quiet for a moment. Flying helps. When the nightmares get bad. When the panic attacks hit. When the walls close in. There's something about being in control of a machine, having to focus completely on keeping it in the air. It drowns out everything else. For a little while. The tent went completely silent. Nobody rushed to fill the silence. They let Austin's words sit there. The younger board member finally spoke. Maybe 50, crew cut going gray, former military by his posture. The VP position is real, operations management, strategic planning, fleet oversight. We want to build out our aviation division. It's not a token offer, it's not charity. We genuinely need someone who knows aircraft, who understands logistics, who can lead people. Daytime work, though, Austin said. More people, more meetings, more noise, more triggers. The board member finished, understanding completely. I know. Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan. 4th of July still makes me sweat. Fireworks put me right back. Austin looked at him, really looked. Saw the recognition there. Brother recognizing brother. We can structure it however you need, the older board member added. Remote work options, flexible hours. Your own office with a door that locks. Soundproofing if you want it. We build the job around you, Commander, not the other way around. Austin studied his water glass. Condensation running down the sides, 3 years invisible, safe. Quiet. Healing at his own pace. This would change everything. I need time to think about it. Of course. Take all the time you need. The position will be here. An assistant appeared at the tent entrance. Young woman. Nervous. Commander Matthews? There's a phone call. Admiral Fletcher. He said it's important. Austin's head snapped up. Fletcher? Yes, sir, he's holding. An admiral calling meant something significant. Austin stood. Excuse me. He stepped outside, took the phone, walked away for privacy. Through the tent fabric, they could hear fragments. Sir? Long pause. Yes, sir, I think half the internet has seen it. Another pause. Longer. I appreciate that, sir. More than I can say. 5 minutes. When Austin returned, something in his face had changed. Lighter somehow. Admiral Fletcher, my former CO. He handed the phone back. Wanted to make sure I was okay, that I wasn't being harassed. He almost smiled. And to tell me the Navy's proud of me, that I represented the service well today. The younger board member stood, extended his hand. They should be proud. That was extraordinary. Austin shook it. Outside, buses were loading. Employees heading home, changed by what they'd witnessed. Whitney remained on her bench, staring at her phone, watching her reputation crumble in real time. The CFO leaned forward. Commander, whatever you decide about the job, you changed something here today. You reminded 200 people that everyone has worth. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves basic respect. He paused. You changed this company, whether you work here or not. Austin looked at them. These people offering him a future. Not because he demanded it, because he'd earned it. I'll have an answer in a week. That's all we ask. They stood, shook hands, made their way out one by one. The pilot lingered last. Commander, when you decide, I hope you say yes. It would be an honor to work with you. Austin nodded. I'll keep that in mind. Alone, finally, Austin sat in the empty tent, listened to the sounds outside. Buses leaving, voices fading into the distance. The world slowly returning to whatever normal was now. Except nothing would be normal again, and maybe that was okay. 3 weeks later. The conference room at Apex Digital Systems looked different at 10 in the morning. Sunlight streaming through the windows, people moving with purpose, energy that felt earned instead of forced. Austin sat at the head of the table. VP of Operations, real title, real authority, real opportunity to make things better. His first initiative sat in a folder in front of him. Value Every Uniform, a Veteran Employment and Dignity Initiative. The board had approved it in 48 hours. The program was simple. Partner with military transition services. Create pipelines for veterans moving into civilian life. But more than that, create a culture where every employee, regardless of their job title, was treated with basic human respect. Janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers, mailroom staff, the people who kept everything running but nobody ever noticed. All of them would have clear advancement paths now, training opportunities, mental health support, someone actually seeing them. Because Austin remembered being invisible, and he wouldn't let anyone else feel that way if he could help it. He'd already hired 3 veterans that week, one as his assistant, a former Marine named Rodriguez who understood nightmares and healing and the value of quiet work. His office had a door that locked and a small locker in the corner. Inside, his maintenance jacket, his mop, the photograph from his old locker now in a proper frame on his desk. Reminders of where he came from, of who he was, all of it. Whitney Foster? She'd stepped down 2 weeks ago. To pursue other opportunities. Board mandated, not fired, just redirected. Into intensive leadership coaching, learning what she should have known all along. Maybe she'd learn. Maybe she wouldn't. But she'd never forget the janitor who could fly. Austin's phone buzzed. Text from the pilot, his colleague now. New veteran hire starts Monday. Helicopter mechanic. 3 tours in Afghanistan. You should meet him. Austin smiled. Typed back, I'll be there. He stood, grabbed his jacket, headed down to the hangar they'd converted into a training space. The Bell 429 sat there, not just a symbol of his past anymore, a tool for his future. They'd use it for the search and rescue program he was building, for training, for showing people that second chances were real. 3 new veteran hires were waiting, young, nervous, hopeful, trying to find their way after service. One of them spoke up. "Sir, everyone's talking about the video. But how'd you get from there to here? How'd you actually make the change?" Austin looked at the helicopter, at these young people searching for direction. "Someone made an assumption about who I was. I proved it wrong. Then I chose to stay and make things right for people coming after me." He grabbed a clipboard, pre-flight checklist. "Come on, let me show you how this works." They gathered around as he walked them through each step, patient, methodical, passing on knowledge that had been passed to him decades ago. Outside, the wind picked up. Perfect flying weather. Austin felt the old pull, the need to be in the air where everything made sense. "Want to go up?" He looked at the veterans. "I'll show you what this bird can do." Their faces lit up like kids on Christmas morning. 10 minutes later, they were airborne. Austin at the controls. 3 passengers watching him work, learning, healing, moving forward. The helicopter climbed into clear sky, smooth, confident, purpose-driven. Below, Apex Digital Systems spread out like a map of possibilities. A place where someone had finally looked past a uniform and seen a person, where dignity had been restored, where second chances became new beginnings. Austin leveled out at 1,000 feet, the controls familiar in his hands, the turbines humming their steady song. The world spread out below. This was what he'd been searching for all along. Not validation, not revenge, not even recognition. Just the chance to be seen for all he was. Janitor, pilot, commander, teacher, survivor, healer. All of it, every part. Worth isn't about what you do. It's about who you are while doing it. The helicopter banked east, into the sun, into whatever came next. And for the first time in 21 years, Austin Matthews felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Doing exactly what he was meant to do. Flying.